I dug up my Amiga 1200 out of the attic and I put it in my study, and this is actually the system info. It has an accelerator card. Well, loading this from disk actually is quite a bit slower than from hard drive, but I'm loading this from disk. PacMania. It's a game released by Namco. It was released in 1987, and it was first brought out in the arcade, and later it was ported to a whole plethora of home systems. The Commodore Amiga, Commodore 64, the Sharp A68000, the Nintendo Entertainment System, Mega Drive, all sorts of disc-based home systems. It was brought out in Namco Museum versions and stuff. So yeah, it's also available on the Game Boy DS, I believe, and also iOS. But yeah, Pac-Man, as you can see, it sports a different layout than the regular Pac-Man. One could actually say it's almost like an isometric view, but it's more of a, I don't know, pseudo 3D like thingy. It's not isometric, but yeah, it's has some sort of perspective going on. What is different is the fact that the screen moves instead of Pac-Man. Pac-Man actually stays smack in the center of the screen, whereas the screen moves about, which is actually quite interesting. It is an interesting game mechanic. Now, instead of only being able to steer in 4 directions, you can also use the fire button to make Pac-Man jump like this. He actually is able to jump over ghosts. But also, ghosts can jump over Pac-Man. There's different colored ghosts. Blinky, Pinky, Inky, Clyde, Sue. You know, these are there, but they're all having different characters. I believe the green ghost might actually be able to jump over the maze structures in order to get in your path. So very interesting gameplay, and it's running a bit slow on my PAL Amiga 1200. I'm grabbing this at 30 frames per second or 25 frames per second, because if I grab it at 60 frames per second or 50 frames per second, something really off is going on. So yeah, here we have the interlude. There's different interludes to this game than the original. Well, the original didn't have actually didn't have any interludes. Ms.Pac-man actually introduced these interludes. For me, Ms.Pac-man and this game are actually the ultimate Pac-Man games. The original is cool, but it's kind of boring because the mazes don't change, they just stay the same. Of course, the behavior of the ghosts does change, and it becomes more and more fast. But yeah, for some reason, yeah, I just like a bit of change, I guess. So yeah, I'm more keen on Ms.Pac-man and this game, PacMania. Oh yeah, there's also an MSX version out. I actually own that version. I own the cartridge, and which is actually dead slow. I may actually end up showing you the MSX version of this game. Perhaps I did. I mean, I have over 1,000 videos on my channel. I might actually have done it already. I may actually have done a video on this game also. This is just a freshen up, you know. It's yeah. Tengen brought it out on the NES because it wasn't an official release. What else? The arcade version actually had a triple or quadruple processor inside. Yeah, what else? Yeah, I just love the way it looks. I mean, it's almost looks like Lego, and some, you know, some of the mazes. The Game Boy Advance. Yeah, the Game Boy Advance has a version of this game. I have that the Pac-Man collection that has this game for the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, another game that I totally love, which I probably will make a video about a bit later on, which clearly is inspired by this game, is actually Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. That game, I played it first on the Xbox 360 arcade game, I believe. Yes, and it's also available for iOS, and I believe it's also out for Android. But that's quite the ultimate Pac-Man. I mean, the maze keeps on changing mid-level in this game, in that game, and it's actually quite cool. And I believe this game, the mechanics of this game, were actually the inspiration for the Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. Now there's also different versions of Pac-Man games. Pac-Man World, which is some sort of platformer. I don't particularly care for those because, yeah, Pac-Man is a maze game, you know? You shouldn't turn it into a platformer. And yeah. We in Europe, we played our games in PAL format. Our Amigas booted into PAL mode, which is 50 Hertz, 25 or 50 frames per second. And it's actually quite different from the Americans, because their Amigas were actually a bit faster. They ran at 30 frames, 60 frames per second. So yeah, for us Europeans, this actually looks okay. I guess for Americans, this actually might. Whoops! Yeah, that was me dying. Yeah, you know, talking and playing games. I mean, yeah, I'm trying it again, but I'm not too good at it. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, the speed difference. You know, there's people who say that the NTSC versions of these games are actually the most perfect versions of this, but a lot of these Amiga games actually were programmed in Europe. Not necessarily this one, but it might actually be. This was published by Grand Slam Entertainment, and this may actually have been programmed in Europe. This actually is a lot better than the Atari ST version, and as you can see, loading from a disc really takes its toll. Black screens all around, no loading progress bar, but yeah, you have the music starting, and then suddenly the game flashes into yeah, actually without warning, it just starts playing. So that's a bit annoying, I think, when playing this from disc. Of course, playing it from disc actually is the real experience. You can actually get this in a WHD load and play this from hard drive on an Amiga 600 or 1200. But I figured, you know, playing it from disc is actually a bit nicer. So yeah, I'm using this ADF to floppy tool to write ADF files to floppies and boot from them to experience the old-fashioned disk loading slowness. Because even on a 16-bit Amiga, loading times were quite a known thing, actually. There wasn't any instant on. But yeah, cartridge-based consoles did have some sort of instant on. Well, the Nintendo 64 actually has loading because the cards are so huge that I reached another level. So these games are actually quite large on the Nintendo 64, for example. That it actually has loading times from cards as well, and I believe that Nintendo DS also does that. I guess working memory versus cartridge space, cartridge size. I mean, if they differ too much, yeah, there's bound to be loading. Just swapping in parts of the game into work memory. But this runs pretty smooth. I'm not sure if the grab will actually show the silky smooth scrolling that happens on the screen, but it's a very nice scrolling, very nice looking game with very bright graphics. That's something that I really had to get used to. I was used to the washed out, almost pastel palette of the Commodore 60. Ooh, those ghosts. I was used to the washed out Commodore 64 palette, and yeah, the colors on the Amiga really pop. I mean, they really pop, even if you die. Oh yeah, this game also came out on the Atari ST. Now, a lot of games looked and played very similar on both machines. I mean, the old Macintosh, the color Macintosh, the 68,000 based Macintoshes, the Atari ST, the Amiga, pretty much are very similar machines. And you had a program called Shapeshifter or M-Plant on both platforms that allowed those platforms to actually run Mac software. I actually had a software like that for the Amiga. I may actually show it because I think it still works. But yeah, the Atari ST version of this game. Ooh, I like this. It really looks a bit like one of these levels in Crystal Castles. I believe it's the second or the third level, where you are chased by trees, and you are actually navigating a similar maze. It looks different, but it's just a Pac-Man maze. But yeah, the Atari ST version. It actually had a very small screen area. I believe on the right side there would be all sorts of scores and stuff, very much like the MSX version, and which made the screen actually about half the size, the gameplay screen. And they had to do that because the programmers back then didn't know how to produce a smooth scrolling on the Amiga, which it is capable of if you know how to program it, but it isn't capable of it in hardware. I need to get those last few pellets. So yeah, I mean, it ran quite a bit slower, and this runs in a lot of colors, whereas the Atari ST only used 16 colors, just like the Commodore 64, only in quite a smoother. This is nice. Quite a smoother type of gameplay. Oh, bloody hell! Oh, and I die. Well, it's game over. Game over, man. Let's put in my initials and then call it quits. I think it's a very nice version. I think the Amiga version is among the best home versions, although the Commodore 64 version is actually quite cool as well. Well, Mark signing off, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye bye, thanks for watching.